Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we are not doing a book review but rather a mid-year check-in. I know it's a little bit past the mid-year mark, but I wasn't able to film this video in June. I was too busy. So I just want to recap where I am reading-wise with goals, some of the best books that I've read this year so far, some of the worst, maybe some changes that I'm thinking about doing, nothing major, but just some things that I'm playing with for things like my channel, as well as some goals for the second half of the year. And as always in these videos, as much as I love to hear myself talk, that's why I film YouTube videos, I mostly like to hear what you're doing. I love hearing about other people's goals, what they're reading, the best books in their year so far, whether or not they're going to hit their goals. That's what's actually most interesting about me. For me, there's no point in filming a YouTube video if I don't if I'm not able to build a community and interact with other readers. Like at that point I can just speak to my cat about the whole topic. So feel free to share what you've been reading this year, whether or not you think you're gonna hit your goals, the books that you've been enjoying. I would love to hear about that as well and put those in the comments below. Now let's talk about where I am in 2025. I do have some notes over here, so that's why I'm gonna be looking off a screen. So a little bit over halfway through the year, my personal life has been very exciting and fun. I've had an absolute blast in 2025. I've had a lot of adventures, a lot of trips, a lot of big goals checked off on my to-do list. Purchased a house, took two bigger trips this year already. I've met a lot of cool people. I've done a lot of interesting things. I've knocked a lot of things off my bucket list. I have not been reading very much. So while 2025 overall has been a very good year, it has not been a good year for reading. My stretch goal that I set at the beginning of the year is 250 books. I haven't even hit 250 books, even though that's the goal I set for myself every year since I think in 2021 I read 272. There was a lot of manga that year, and that's what pushed me over the edge. I'm not serious, or I'm not gonna beat myself up to try to hit 250. If I hit 150, for me, that's doing pretty good. So let's round down, say 50 weeks a year. I know it's 52, but let's say 50 weeks a year. And let's say I can read 3 books a week, which is doable for me. That's 150 books. So that's my average reading pace, I would say, and that's where I would like to be, but again, I'm not gonna penalize myself for not being there. This year, in mid-July, I have read 37 books. So I just want to stop and say 37 books in a year is a pretty good number. If your average person off the street was polled, they probably read 1, maybe 2 books. I'm sure a certain percentage have read 0 books this year. So 37 is pretty good. I just want to start there. 37 is a pretty good number. 37 is not, I don't say good for me, but it's nowhere close to either of these goal numbers that I've set. So yeah, I think I'm unlikely to hit either of those final numbers. But we're going to have to see. So I have read 37, so I am pulling from a smaller number for my best, my worst, and then updating for my goals. Sorry, there's cat hair flying through the air and it got in my eye. Yay. So let's talk about some of the best books that I've read this year. Unfortunately, my favorite book this year so far was one that I listened to an audiobook while on a road trip out west. And I was way too busy because I took the trip right before I purchased a home, and I did not have time to review the book. And it was my favorite book this year so far, and I'm kind of upset about not having reviewed it because it was so good. The book was Bandit Heaven, The Hole in the Wall Gangs, and the final chapter of the Wild West. This book was insane in the best way. The Wild West truly was wild. I personally always thought that I wasn't really interested in American history, everything that occurred between the Civil War and World War I. I kind of just zoned out during that part of the school year because I always felt like it was boring. The Wild West apparently was quite interesting. These gangs out west, which are mail robbery and train robbery gangs, were just filled with the most absolute crazy characters you have ever met, doing the most insane things time after time. I think I was alternating between laughing and shock the entire time I was listening to this audiobook. The narrator did a fantastic job. The whole book was just a fantastic, wild ride. At one point, I paused the audiobook because when I listen to audiobooks in my car, I will pause it and talk back and provide my own personal commentary as though someone's listening. I don't know. And I paused and I was like, wow, the West really was wild. Wait, it was called the Wild West. Girl, there's a reason for that. Bandit Heaven, fantastic book, top book of the year. Very upset that I didn't I have a chance to review it. I could try to review it now, but I feel like I didn't take notes during it, which is the hardest part for me, is reviewing without notes. But Bandit Heaven was probably my favorite. A close second was Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is a very popular and very big series. I actually listened to that when I first got my house and it needed a good deep scrub and disinfect it. It is a long audiobook. I've gotten the recommendation from several people, most recently one of my friends in my D&D group. So I let him know that I had read that. It was really, really good. The thing is, the next audiobook in the entry, I think is like 20 or 30 hours. So I feel like I need a really good project that I'm just gonna get in a good flow state to put it on to listen to it. So I think maybe when I do my painting, I might listen to the second one in the series. But that's a fantasy series, and I know Robin Hobb is quite popular, and I really, really did enjoy that one. Again, I didn't review it on my channel because it was like during this crazy time. Now, I have had some worsts, so let's talk about some of the worst books that I've read this year. The top one was one that I actually wound up DNFing. So every year for Valentine's Day, I try to read some romance books, just get myself out of my comfort zone. This one, I don't even remember if this was a Valentine's Day read or I just tried to pick this up on my own and read it, but it was Fall for Him by Andy Burke. This book was terrible. I DNF'd it. I felt like I don't know what it is. I think the key irritation for me in romance, because I'm not a romance reader. I don't like romance usually. And I'm starting to realize one of the reasons I dislike it so much is dialogue. The dialogue feels so fake in every romance book. It's not how anyone actually speaks. I feel like if romance authors just went to some workshops and learned how to write better dialogue, and I'm sure there are romance authors who write good dialogue. Let me just start there. It's just the ones I'm picking have the worst dialogue I have ever read in my life, and this was one of them. I didn't like Fall for Him at all, so I DNF'd that one. Worst book I read this year. The other one that was pretty bad was also a romance one that I did read for my Valentine's Day challenge, Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I know Ali Hazelwood has a lot of fans. I didn't like it. I felt like there was the potential for a good story. It was based on this corporate takeover of a startup, and the one character, the woman, works for the startup. It's like her dream, and then the guy is on the other side of this hostile takeover, but maybe the founder of the startup, who's a close friend of the woman, is not being honest. I feel like there could have been a good story there. Even though I'm very suspicious of workplace romances. I don't do that, guys. Don't do that. But I don't know. Again, it was the dialogue. The people talked, did not talk like real people. And there was a lot of other problems actually too. Another minor irritation with that book was the woman kept referring to herself as so tall, and she was a good solid 6 inches shorter than me. I was like, dang girl, what does that make me? That was a minor irritation. I do have a review of both of those books. And the final worst one this year, I feel like this makes it sound like I've had a bad year, but I really just had 3 standout bad ones, was Full Speed to a Crash Landing by Beth Revis. I feel like this one was bad because I had high expectations. The first 2 were romance, so I went in maybe thinking they might not be my cup of tea. Full Speed to a Crash Landing, I was hoping was a fun sci-fi to kick my year off, and it just wound up not being my cup of tea. It was the first book I reviewed in 2025. Didn't like that one. Now for some surprises. So which ones surprised me I liked more than I thought I would. The first one was House Witch. That was a cozy fantasy that I read for my book club that I'm in. The reason this one surprised me was because I had recently read a cozy fantasy and I was not a fan prior to reading House Witch. This was last year, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It wasn't that coffee shop one, but it was another one. You Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. I tried to read that one and I only got a couple pages in, and it was just so bad I had to put it down, which normally I don't DNF a book that fast. I didn't even add it to any of my reading lists. It was just really, really bad. So I was like, oh, which disappointed me because I wanted to like cozy fantasy. I felt like it could have been a really fun genre. So then when we read House Witch, I actually really, really liked it. Now there were some, I would say, flaws with the book. I think it was self-published or it went through a smaller publisher. I just felt like it could have used a little bit stronger editing. But I felt like the content was there. And I think the reason why I rated it so highly, because I think a lot of people in my book club probably gave it around a 3-star and I gave it a 4-star, was I rated it so highly because I had read such a bad cozy fantasy before, and now I was reading something that was so much better than what I had initially read. So that kind of gave me hope for the genre. I wouldn't have picked that book up without the prodding of my book club, so I'm glad that I was able to read it. The second one is one that I just put out a review for yesterday, and that was The Wicked Boy. That is about a Victorian child murderer and like the psychology of that and the history and the times of Victorian London. I picked it up essentially for some background noise. I was like, this could be like a fun, intriguing thing to listen to while I do some projects around the house and run some errands and stuff, basically. I just kind of wanted something to listen to. And it wound up being really, really good, and I was actually intrigued. You know when your book gets really good, I don't know if anyone else does this, and I'm supposed to be like scrubbing something or like folding my laundry, but instead I'm just sitting there like listening to it like, whoa, what's going on? That's kind of what kept happening. So that was one of those books where like I picked it up expecting to get like a solid basis or like hear a good story, but I wasn't really expecting it to be as highly rated as I did rate it. So I did love that one. Some honorable mentions, ones that were like really enjoyable but just didn't make the cut for like best or worst, but I still really recommend and enjoyed. Night Train to Rigel by Timothy Zahn. Timothy Zahn is best known for his Thrawn series, this related to Star Wars, but this was another sci-fi book. It's a little older, but don't let the old cover dissuade you. I kind of like the look of like the old sci-fi covers. This is about like this faster than light train system that goes through the galaxy, and something's going on, so this character gets mixed up. It's not quite like a train mystery where like it's in what are those called, like locked door? No, not locked door, where everyone in the murder mystery is like on the train. It's not quite like that, but it's just an intriguing adventure through space, so I really liked it, and it's the first non-Star Wars book by Timothy Zahn that I've read. The second one was one that I listened to right after Bandit Heaven, and that was The Summer of 1876 by Chris Wimmer. It's actually done by the same audiobook narrator, and it's just a look at the centennial summer of the United States of America and all the different factors that were changing, the good and the bad in the United States. So some updates about my reading adventures this year. I'm unlikely to hit 250. If I hit 250, that's going to be absolutely insane. I feel like I would have to like really just push, and I'm not gonna, like, reading is a hobby. It's not a job. I'm not getting paid for any part of this, so why on earth would I like put myself through the ringer and make myself hate a hobby to hit an arbitrary number I set for myself in January? However, I could get further than I think because I feel like there's been like a pressure valve release. That's the only way I can describe it, where I didn't read for so long, and reading is one of my favorite hobbies. But now that I've let myself read again, or I let myself go back to the library, it's been like, I gotta get everything. If you listen to my live library chat and life like catch up, which I also saved on my channel so people can go back to it, I checked out way too many books from the library, and I think it was just like I denied myself for too long, and now I kind of went crazy. Fortunately, there's literally no consequences for checking out books from the library. You just have to return them. So I think there may be a slingshot effect in the second half of the year, especially as the weather gets cooler in the fall. It's still summer right now, so I'm going outside a lot. The other thing, and some of these other ones are like channel related, something else that I think I'm going to start doing is when I review larger books, I think I'm going to start breaking them up into parts. Like the one I'm reading right now is The Monastic World, which is about the monastic world in the Christian world in Eastern and Western Europe. When I'm reading these books that are like heavy and academic and 400 plus pages, 300, 400 plus pages, especially when they have clear part 1, part 2, part 3, I might just review them as part 1, part 2, part 3, and then I can put all those videos together in one video. Just because sometimes I find myself, when I have a thicker academic book, skipping, or I'm having to like rush the review because I'm trying to fit too much into one review. So I think some of the bigger books are going to get broken up into parts. The other thing that I've played with, which I don't know if I'm going to do, is I do have a book-based like Instagram account, and I was like, that was kind of fun. I did it in 2020 before I had a YouTube channel, and I was like, I don't like this, so I quit. But maybe I'll start it again. I haven't decided. And the other update is you'll probably see a slight increase in the number of audiobooks that I'm reading, just because audiobooks are easy to do with house projects. So I haven't recently discovered audiobooks, but I think there's maybe an increase in audiobooks that I listen to throughout the year. Finally, I want to discuss some goals for the rest of the year. So it's like not January, oh my word, it's July 12. So some reading goals. One of the ones I've been talking about a lot is discovering some poetry I enjoy. So that's something I've just been making progress on. So as always, leave your recommendations. I do want to make continual progress towards the Hugo Award winners and finalists. I'm trying to read through the winners and finalists. I'm just bogged down in the 50s right now. I need to be more consistent about that. Viewer recommendations. Every time someone leaves a recommendation in my comment section, I put it on an Excel spreadsheet. These are separate from my TBR that I have on Goodreads, but I need to make a more consistent effort of getting through those. So I need to start taking a look at those and getting those worked into my reading schedule. One of my goals at the beginning of the year was to get my TBR on Goodreads to below 100. That's not happening. It's currently 322. So maybe if I get under 250, I'll feel pretty good. That's still a massive stretch. I'm gonna try my best. And then some other things just around my channel that would be fun to hit, but I'm not gonna kill myself. These are also like out of my control, more or less, so I'm not too stressed about these. If I get to 2,500 subscribers, I'm like at 2,100 or 2,120, I think, when I'm filming this video. I'm fluctuating between like 19 and 20 as people drop and rejoin. So yeah, 2,500, that's 400 between now and the end of the year. That would kind of be a stretch, but maybe not. We'll see if I can get to that. The other one is I have this little bar that's like progress towards your watch hours, which is how many people have watched your videos or how many hours have been watched on your videos in the last 365 days. And I want to get to 3,000. That does not get me paid. Not like for ad money, but there's like a bar to get to 3,000, which means people can like send you gifts or something. I don't care about that. I just have this annoying bar on the back end that's not filled out. Like it's like a progress bar and there's like a gap between me and the end. And I've been sick of looking at that gap. So I just want it filled out so I don't have to look at it anymore. And that will, that encourages me to make better, more watchable content as well. So that could be a good goal. And then of course my goal is always consistent filming. I think that's going to be easier now that some things have settled. I think my backgrounds are going to look crazier and weirder as I figure out where the best place to film in my house is. But yeah, I think consistent filming isn't going to be too hard of a goal. I think I'm going to be able to do that. So as always, let me know what you think, how you're doing with your reading goals in 2025. Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.